Well, good morning. I don't know if you guys think I'm edgy or not, but apparently YouTube does, because they took down my Thursday show and they said that I violated their misinformation policy. And I went back and looked at it. You know, this is an opinion show. I just expressed the opinion that I think Joe Biden died in Las Vegas, and apparently they took issue with that. You're not allowed to think those things. I also asked the question, who is running the government since Joe Biden probably died and they're not telling us about it? And then I said that Kamala Harris is not capable of running anything but her mouth. I'm not quite sure, but apparently I violated YouTube's misinformation policies by expressing an opinion. Now, YouTube, of course, is not a government entity. It's Google. But it is run by hardcore leftists who have an avowed desire to turn this world into a one-world globalist government, and it really irks them that the United States is just not doing very good in the bowing down category. So apparently this show is a little too edgy for YouTube, and I'm probably not going to be able to put I'm not going to be able to put this episode up on YouTube. That's a fact. I did appeal to them, but in times past, appeals have gone nowhere. I mean, I used to have a very popular show with more than 50,000 subscribers, and then YouTube just said after 8 years one day, they just said, that's it, we're done with you. I don't know, it's up to you guys if you think I'm edgy. Maybe I'm too edgy for radio, but I grew up in a country where everyone was allowed to have an opinion. You didn't have to be right, but you were allowed to have your opinion. And I thought that maybe I could get through with that. Didn't really think about it. So anyway, be sure to let me know. I'd appreciate it. You can write the station, freedom1300.com. There's a contact you if you think I'm too edgy. If you want more, let me know. Now, on to this. A federal judge in Texas said that Texas can no longer investigate alleged cases of vote harvesting. The ruling made by U.S. District Judge Xavier Rodriguez immediately halted the state's ability to investigate alleged cases of vote harvesting, such as the investigation into the League of United Latin American Citizens by Attorney General Ken Paxton. Before today's ruling, a person who knowingly provided or offered vote harvesting services in exchange for compensation was committing a third-degree felony. This meant that organizers of voter outreach organizations and even volunteers could go to jail for up to 10 years and be fined for $10,000 just for simply offering these services. Let me tell you how that worked. There were certain people that would go out and they would find people that they thought they could get to vote and say, hey, how about a 6-pack of beer if you come and vote right now, and here's your ballot that you need to fill out. Or they'd say, how about a carton of cigarettes? Just depends on who they were offering it to, what the incentive looked like. But apparently now we can't investigate those things. This is kind of unusual, isn't it? Paxton has vowed that he will appeal the ruling. And of course, that's going to be appealed, but it's maybe not going to get done before the election. This will prevent his office from investigating any electoral violations and is deeply troubling. The risk undermining public trust in our political process, he said. According to Republican lawmakers, the provision was put in place to prevent voter fraud and secure election integrity. However, in the ruling, the judge noticed that there was widespread confusion about how to implement the canvassing restriction from local election administrators. This confusion also left voter outreach organizations uncertain as to whether they could continue to break the law by providing their volunteers with food or bus fare or gas because it might look like compensation. Many organizations, including La Unión del Pueblo Entero and the Mexican American Legal Defense and Educational Fund, have filed lawsuits against these provisions of the law, including voter assistance and mail-in ballot restrictions. The challenges to these provisions have not yet been ruled on. The original complaints were filed in August and September of 2021, according to the Texas Tribune. This is why the Democrats are able to win elections in the way they do, because they understand that the wheels of justice turn slowly and that they own most of the judges. So consequently, they violate the rules willy-nilly without any sort of fear, because they know that no one's going to stop them from doing it. And if a lawsuit should come out, if it should be filed, it will be years before that lawsuit is heard. And if it is heard, it's very unlikely that anyone will be found guilty. And if they indeed are found guilty, it's very unlikely that any of them will get a substantial penalty. This is why they're able to do the things that they do. This should be concerning to all of us. So I ask you, at what price liberty? More than 2,000 years ago, a man that I've quoted often, Marcus Tullius Cicero, told a story of two friends who had a bond as strong as a brotherhood. Damon and Pythias lived in Sicily, an island right off the coast of Italy, and in their city-state, Syracuse, they had fallen on bad times because they were being ruled by a tyrant by the name of Dionysius. As Damon and Pythias were just and true in their cause to each other, they were also just and true in their cause for liberty and freedom. United in their cause, they had both set out to stir the hearts of the people toward the right in different parts of their beloved city. No king should have absolute power over the people, Pythias preached in the city streets. The people should have more say in who governs us and how we are governed. The people murmured in agreement, and whispered mumblings made their way to the tyrant king Dionysius. "Find me the one responsible for this disturbance," Dionysius yelled to the captain of his guard. It did not take long for the captain to find out who was responsible, as he found Pythias still preaching the same sentiments in the street. "Are you the one responsible for spreading these lies against the king?" asked the captain, his hard eyes set against Pythias. Pythias said, "I only speak truth against tyranny." "Well, we'll see how your truth fares against the king," the captain shouted, and ordered his men to seize this rebel. They roughly handled him and brought him before the king, and Damon, having become aware of his friend's dangerous plight, secretly followed from behind. The king, though shaking with rage when Pythias was brought to him, quietly said, "Your insolence has cost you your life, unless you go and tell the people that you take back what you said." "I cannot tell a lie," Pythias said. "You tax the people greatly, and we have no say in how you rule our once great city-state." Dionysius was unable to control his anger at this point. He said, "Then your life is forfeit." Pythias replied, "I would gladly give my life for a cause that is just. But please, let me go and say farewell to my family." The tyrant king didn't understand things about honor and did not believe for a second that Pythias would return if he let him go. He said, "You think me a fool that I would allow you to return to your family? You would escape and never return." Well, at that moment, a voice shot out from behind the captain and his guards. "I will take the place of Pythias while he says farewell to his loved ones." And Damon strode forward. The king thought, "Well, this is interesting. Surely give the people a reason to believe I am fair if I allow this thing, even though this man is a fool. This Pythias will never be seen or heard from again." "All right," he said aloud, "you may take the place of your friend. However, if Pythias does not return by 3 days' time, then you will pay the price of his insolence with your own life." Damon approached his friend, and they clasped arms. "Go and see your family, my dear friend," Damon said to him. Pythias answered, "But I'll never be able to repay you for this." Damon grabbed his friend by the shoulders and gently shook him. He said, "Your friendship to me has paid the price 10 times over. Now go." As Pythias left, Dionysius hollered out in dark laughter, "Your friend will never return to you now, you fool. You must wait in prison, and in 3 days' time, you will be executed." Damon looked at him steadily and said, "My friend will return." The king had the guards take him to the prison cell, but every day the king would come and antagonize Damon about his friend having abandoned him. And on the third day, the king approached the cell and he said, "At sunset, you shall be executed because you are a fool. You could have been a free man, but you chose to believe this friend of yours." Damon replied, "I know Pythias will do everything possible to make it back here to free me." "We shall see," said the king, stroking his beard thoughtfully. Damon watched the sun trek across the sky serenely. He knew his friend must have run into trouble, and he still believed that Pythias would return if it were possible. And then, just as the sun was about to set west of the Mediterranean Sea, a shout was heard outside the prison. "Damon!" Pythias shouted. "Where are you? I have returned." Upon hearing this, the king and his men let Damon go and brought him and Pythias to the courtyard. Damon and Pythias embraced one another once more, and Damon noted that Pythias was now wounded and bruised in more than a few places. He said, "What has become of you, my friend?" Pythias said, "I've been here earlier, Damon, but as I was sailing back, I was held back by fierce winds that would not allow my boat to sail. Once the winds became favorable, it was not long before my ship was overrun by a band of pirates who took my boat and my belongings and threw me out into the waters." Pythias then looked at the king, who stood by watching quietly. He said, "I am ready now." For a long time, Dionysius stood still and said not a word. Both Damon and Pythias believed they saw a tear slide down his cheek. He said, "I will let both of you go now on one condition." And Pythias said, "Name your demand, and we will determine if it is just." He said, "I will let both of you go if you teach me to be worthy of this type of friendship." I want you to know I'm fortunate I've had a few friends like this in my life. And I have thousands of acquaintances, but I've got a few friends that are like this. I hope you do too.
You have a choice, and you chose Freedom 1300.